Today, we're unraveling the Wayne Seybold bond scandal. It's a massive municipal mystery involving missing taxpayer money, drawn-out legal battles, and a landmark Supreme Court ruling. All right, let's just dive right in.
So how on earth do a routine city project, the state Supreme Court, and an Olympic figure skater all connect? I mean, it literally sounds like the plot of a true crime movie, right? But no, this is a very real, very serious case of municipal corruption. And before we get into the crazy fallout, we really need to understand the stakes here. You see, this wasn't some bank heist pulled off in the dead of night. No, this was a slow, systemic drain of public funds, executed in broad daylight by the exact people trusted to protect those funds.
Okay, so it all started with a promise back in 2008. And the pitch? Well, it was incredibly optimistic. The city of Marion, Indiana, had this historic but completely abandoned YMCA building. The grand plan was a massive $5.5 million revitalization project. Citizens were promised this vibrant downtown hub, complete with a hotel, a restaurant, and retail shops. It's the exact kind of project that mayors completely dream of and citizens eagerly vote for because it represented growth, investment, and a much brighter future for the whole city. To make this dream a reality, the city put up some serious cash, $2.5 million to be exact. And this was funded through tax increment finance, or TIF bonds. Now, to put the puzzle pieces together, the key players who orchestrated this deal were Mayor Wayne Seybold, a prominent Indianapolis-based financial advisory firm called the London Witte Group, and a California-based developer named Michael Ang. These three forces came together to secure that $2.5 million in public backing. But, as you might guess, right from the very start, there was a massive problem.
There was a pretty stark contrast between the promise and the reality. The investigation later revealed that the developer, Michael Ang, didn't actually have the funds to finish his half of the project. He was completely broke. But here's the kicker. The financial advisors, the London Witte Group, and the mayor intentionally hid this critical financial instability from the bank. Why would they do that? Well, supposedly because the London Witte Group wanted to push the bond issuance through just to pocket a hidden $25,000 contingency fee. They masked the risk, secured the public money, and basically doomed the whole project before a single hammer was ever swung.
And the corruption didn't just stop at hidden fees. It gets deeply personal, dipping straight into nepotism. According to court records, Mayor Seybold made a very strict, explicit demand to the developer. He allegedly stated that the city of Marion would only invest the public money and approve the bonds if the developer hired the mayor's own brother, Chad Seybold. I mean, wow. So the developer put Chad on the payroll, essentially funneling those public bond proceeds directly into the mayor's brother's pocket as a salary.
So the really crucial point here is what actually happened to all that taxpayer money? Because the project completely stalled and that YMCA building just sat there empty. Well, nearly $680,000 just vanished. And when you follow the money, the destinations are just absurd. Discovery records showed this bond money was paying the premium on Mayor Seybold's personal life insurance policy. It was going as cash sums directly to the mayor's wife. It was being funneled right back into Seybold's political campaigns. And, believe it or not, large sums were even routed directly to the developer's girlfriend. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was treated like a personal piggy bank.
Let's look at the timeline and see how this entire scheme finally unraveled. In 2015, the developer Michael Ang died unexpectedly. This left the project completely abandoned and the city heavily in debt. At the end of that very same year, Mayor Wayne Seybold's 3 terms ended and he left office. Then, in 2016, the new incoming administration, led by Mayor Jess Allenbaugh, walked in, took one look at the gutted building, and ordered an independent audit from KPMG. By 2017, realizing they had been utterly robbed, the city of Marion filed a massive lawsuit. But getting to the truth, that wasn't exactly easy. And this brilliantly illustrates how a real cover-up operates. The mayor's brother, Chad Seybold, whose employment, remember, was forced by the mayor, went into full obstruction mode. The city had unmonitored cash flowing out without any vendor invoices or receipts, and Chad directly benefited from it. So when those KPMG forensic auditors came knocking, Chad flatly refused to supply documents. He stonewalled so hard that the city actually had to take him to court just to get his personal storage devices. It took over a year of legal stalling before a judge finally ruled him in non-compliance and forced him to hand over the evidence. Which brings us to a massive legal standoff. The city of Marion is suing the financial firm London Witte Group for negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, and constructive fraud. Now, what was the firm's defense?
Interestingly enough, they didn't even argue that they were innocent. Instead, they argued that the statute of limitations had simply expired. They basically said to the city, yes, okay, maybe things went wrong, but too many years have passed since the bonds were issued back in 2008, so legally you've just run out of time to sue us. And shockingly, the lower courts initially agreed with that and dismissed the city's case. No way, right?
While the city didn't give up, they appealed it all the way to the top. In June 2021, the Indiana Supreme Court made a landmark unanimous ruling, officially adopting something called the adverse domination doctrine into state law. It sounds complicated, but basically the Supreme Court said, look, you absolutely cannot expect a city to sue itself while the corrupt actors are the ones holding the gavel. Because Mayor Seybold adversely dominated the local government, the clock on the statute of limitations was officially paused until he actually left office. This was a massive, game-changing win for municipal accountability across the entire state. Because of that Supreme Court ruling, the case was finally able to go back to a local jury trial. And in late 2022, a jury found the London Witte Group liable. The financial firm fought it, of course, but in October 2023, the Court of Appeals firmly upheld the judgment. The penalty? A whopping $3.5 million in damages and restitution owed right back to the city of Marion.
But you know, that $3.5 million judgment was just the beginning of the fallout for the London Witte Group. The ripple effects were absolutely devastating. They had to absorb a massive financial loss, having to rely on corporate capital and malpractice insurance. Even worse for them, they were blacklisted. City councils across Indiana flat out refused to renew contracts with them. The court officially cemented that they had breached their fiduciary duty, which completely destroyed their credibility as watchdogs for public money. Plus, the specific partners involved faced intense regulatory scrutiny and ethical investigations from state licensing boards. So yeah, their municipal business was effectively ruined. Which leads us to the million-dollar question, or I guess the $2.5 million question, right? We've seen the developer's company completely dissolve, and we've seen the financial firm face absolute ruin. But what about Mayor Wayne Seybold, the guy who allegedly orchestrated the nepotism, the hidden fees, and the siphon campaign funds? What was his penalty in all of this? Well, get ready for an incredibly unequal resolution, because the city of Marion pursued civil litigation to recover those stolen funds. Rather than pushing for a criminal indictment, Wayne Seybold never faced criminal prosecution. He never saw a single day in jail. The legal battles were entirely focused on clawing money back from the deep pockets of the financial advisory firm. So while his partners faced total financial and professional ruin, the former mayor largely escaped the direct legal penalties that crippled literally everyone else involved.
So, where is he now? Well, after failed runs for the U.S. House and state treasurer right before the scandal fully broke, Seybold simply returned to the private sector. If you didn't know, before his time in politics, he was actually a very prominent U.S. Olympic pairs figure skater. He competed in the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary. Today, he operates businesses like Seybold Skating and is the CEO of Ice Games 88, a production group for ice skating entertainment. And because he avoided a criminal conviction, he maintains this surprisingly positive public profile. He's often interviewed about his athletic past rather than, his pretty massive political controversies.